I learned that you don't make money running businesses, you make money when you sell them.
People's minds will be blown because not many people really can conceptualize someone saying that companies can be bought for £1, bought for nothing, paid over time. They haven't seen it.
There was a series of epiphanies that happened along the way that were kind of really big aha moments for me. And I mean, the first one was acquiring a competitor down the road from me, and that grew my business by a year's worth of sales in an afternoon.
You embody wealth. How can people embody it so that they can trap more into their life?
It wasn't overnight. I'm a 30-year overnight success, I guess. It's been a slog to go through all of that process. A lot of people say, oh, entrepreneurs are greedy, they just want money. And actually, I think the people that do something they hate just for the money are the people that have jobs. And actually, entrepreneurs are the ones that are willing to sacrifice everything, to take the risk in order to have a better life, to create freedom and to do these things.
Is there a number that you got to, though, Jeremy, and you thought, you know what, beyond this, the gains are not as incremental as this?
I mean, I get 3 million points a year from Amex, and you get a point for every dollar you spend.
That's personal spending, isn't it?
That's kind of look at that and go, that's a lot. But of course, it just becomes normal.
So I just want to talk through these 12 ways that you've got of buying businesses and kind of get you to explain how you've used them and what you're kind of doing with them. Jeremy, we are on this beautiful boat. Thank you very much for having us. I think the most interesting thing for the audience in regards to your story is obviously you've gone from building businesses and obviously exiting a business yourself to now doing mergers and acquisitions in your own right, and you've kind of systemized a way to acquire businesses and add value from mass acquisitions. And I really want this audience to understand how you first came across that concept and break that down.
Yeah, I think it is quite alien to most entrepreneurs. They call it acquisition entrepreneurship. It's a kind of branch of entrepreneurship, if you like, but it's one that a lot of people don't pursue. And I don't think it's intuitive. I don't think it's an instinctive thing to do, because when I was running startups, when I was in my early days of business, I very much felt that, I couldn't buy a business because I didn't have any money, and the banks wouldn't lend it to me if they were fucking sane. So how would I go and buy a business? It seemed like something that just was beyond the realms of possibility. And so it was only because I happened to end up in an industry that was acquisitive, which was the telecoms industry. So telecoms basically scaled very quickly, got very fragmented. Fragmented normally means when there's lots and lots of small players and a few big ones. And then basically the telecoms market became saturated. Everyone that was going to have a phone had a phone. And all you could really do was win customers from somebody else. So once you reached that kind of saturation point, the market consolidated, which meant all the smaller companies bought each other. So every week I would have meetings with people that were trying to buy me. Now, that preconception I'd had that, if you didn't have any money, you couldn't buy a business, was then challenged by the fact there were all these people trying to buy my business who didn't have any money. So I basically felt, well, look, I haven't got any money either. I should be on the other side of this desk. I should be the buyer, not the seller. And that was the moment, if you like, where I started to think about maybe buying a business as a strategy for growing my existing company.
How do you overcome that thought process? Because most of us are taught this thought process initially of go to school, get a job, and go and save for a house. That's the first thing we're taught. Then we go into entrepreneurship and we're taught build a company, exit the company, get a multiple, go again. That's what we're taught in that scenario. You've had to then change the paradigm again to understand, no, actually, not only can I acquire more businesses that wrap into my own and roll them up, put them on the stock exchange, but I can do that with little to no money. So how have you overcome that paradigm shift?
Yeah, so I think I was really lucky that, I grew up in a household that was quite entrepreneurial. My dad was a farmer, my mum ran a small business. And so I think when you're growing up, first of all, most of my friends and contemporaries that I met, were kind of making a decision as to whether they went into the corporate world or if they went into work for government in some capacity. And I think I had a third option open to me, which is do whatever the fuck you want. And I don't think that was open to that many children, but I really had that mindset that you could go this way, or do whatever you like. And so, farmers always have side hustles, and my dad was a farmer. So every year there would be a new off-season side hustle that we were doing, whether it was making pet food or paving slabs or fishing bait, or there was all sorts of things that he did that I got involved in. And so I saw how you could start something from nothing, get customers, create revenue. And I also had a job, which I could go and feed the animals on the farm after school for £1 an hour. And actually, I think that was hugely motivational, because when you're being paid £1 an hour, all you can think about is how can I not do this shitty job for £1 an hour? Now, I think most people that have a job get stuck in that job because they've got the pay. I actually wrote in the first book I wrote, which was called Go Do, I actually said what's really funny is a lot of people say, oh, entrepreneurs are greedy, they just want money. And actually, I think the people that do something they hate just for the money are the people that have jobs. And actually, entrepreneurs are the ones that are willing to sacrifice everything, to take the risk in order to have a better life, to create freedom and to do these things. And so, the French have an expression, qui s'accuse, j'accuse, which is if you accuse me of something, it's because you're guilty of it yourself. And so when those people say an entrepreneur is greedy and all about the money, actually it's because they're greedy and all about the money, and they're imposing projecting that onto you. And, they get trapped in, they have to have the job because it pays the mortgage. And then, they're caught in that sort of perpetual cycle. Whereas entrepreneurs are willing to say, fuck it, I'll risk everything. I'll try everything to get what I want at the end of it. To
change that narrative as well.
Yeah.
So in that initial business, you actually sold that to give you some form of capital to invest as well? Or?
Yeah. So look, it was all a bit accidental. So I'd love to say it was like some grand master plan or whatever, but I kind of just stumbled around in the dark, bumping into things, and it turned out the way it did. But there was a series of epiphanies that happened along the way that were kind of really big aha moments for me. And I mean, the first one was acquiring a competitor down the road from me as a telecoms company. And that grew my business by a year's worth of sales in an afternoon. And I hadn't had to invest in any marketing, any salespeople, or take any particularly long amount of time to generate those additional customers. And so that was a fucking, wow, I can just run the last 10 meters of the marathon. They still give me a medal kind of moment. So that was a really big aha moment. I then bought lots of companies and became a little bit overwhelmed and overworked. And so I sold one of them. I thought I was selling the company for money. It was very simple. I'd like some money, please. But what I realized was several epiphanies came in one. One of them was I got all my time back, and I hadn't factored in all the time that you get back when you sell a business. I just thought about the cash injection that you would get. And now entrepreneurs start businesses because they want freedom. And freedom could be time freedom, it could be financial freedom. But ultimately, on some level, it's freedom. Then they start a business, and that business takes away all of their time and all of their money, and they have no freedom at all. They can't even go on fucking holiday. So it's kind of the opposite of what they set out to do. It creates a prison for them. So when you sell a business and you suddenly have time and money, I can see why so many entrepreneurs become alcoholics, get divorced, buy a sports car, just go down these like crazy routes with it. But luckily, I discovered how to buy businesses, and so I wanted to focus on buying and selling companies instead of starting them, growing them, and dealing with all the trials and tribulations that go on with running a business. So I always joke that business would be great fun if it wasn't for staff and customers. M&A is kind of business without the staff and customers, which is kind of the fun bits, if you like. So I learned that you get all your time back, which was a big epiphany. I suddenly had time and money, which are two things entrepreneurs never have. So when you have those, it's truly a superpower. I learned that you don't make money running businesses. You make money when you sell them. And this was a really big game changer for me, because what I'd done previously was kind of empire building. So I would keep buying companies and paying myself an income from them. And the income was getting bigger, but your lifestyle just swells according to your income. So I think it was Oscar Wilde that said, a man that lives within his means lacks imagination. You always find something extra that you need, that you have to spend your income on. And so creating capital events, I think, is the only way to create wealth, because the capital event can generate sort of genuinely passive income, the income that genuinely comes in while you sleep. I'm not talking about the kind of, the internet marketing bollocks of passive income. I'm talking about proper capital deployed into investable assets that generates income. And that's freedom. That's financial freedom.
When you obviously were speaking through that, there's a powerful statement you said there about you realized the money's only made when you buy or sell a business. Mm-hmm. There's no money in between, and that's where a lot of us, that are, even myself included, and everyone probably that's listening to this podcast, we're all trapped in that game. Yeah, we're all swapping our time to manage staff, to manage people, and all this other stuff, to try and win deals, to try and clip £100,000 here, £1 million there, whatever. But we're still all trapped in it. Right. So that is a massive paradigm shift that's had to occur there.
It is, and for me, like I say, it was more accidental than anything else. But after it happens,
You can never unsee. You never unsee it.
Fucking sense, yeah. It's but before it happens, it's bonkers. And when somebody says you should sell your company, you're like, no, why would I sell my company? And this was another lesson I had. I had a company that was generating 200 grand a quarter of profit.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a keeper. You know, I was selling another company. I was keeping this one. This is the one I was going to keep. It bought me a new fast car every year. It was, it was my favorite business. And one of the reasons I really wanted to keep it was it had a 3-year contract with the world's largest insurance company. The world's largest insurance company was AIG, and in 2007 they went bust. And that company also went bust as a result of that. Now, any time before then, you know, the reason I didn't sell that company is because it had a 3-year contract with the world's largest insurance company. The reason I should have sold that company is it had a 3-year contract with the world's largest insurance company, and a buyer is going to love that. Now, I'm not saying I should have sold it to someone because the client went bust. I'm saying I should have sold it because it was valuable and I would have made more money out of it. And what I actually realise now as well is, although that was making 200 grand a quarter, that's 800 grand a year of net profit. The amount you could actually take out of that business, I had a partner in there as well, but the amount you could actually take out of that business from that 800 grand is probably like 300 or 400 grand a year that you could take out, because you needed to keep working capital in there. You needed some, stuff for growing the business and everything else. So you could only take 300 or 400 grand out of it, but you could probably sell it for like 3 to 4 million. And 3 to 4 million to generate 500 or 600 grand a year of cash flow from passive investments is very, very easy. So effectively, the amount you could sell it for would generate more money in your sleep than you made running like a mad bastard day in, dealing with all the shit that you have to deal with a company, dealing with all the stupid employee problems and nonsense that goes on with a company, not being able to take holidays because you're dealing with shit for the company. All of that stuff basically goes away when you sell the company, and you get more money coming in every month from the income that's been invested.
And I suppose because of the way that you structure the deals, it's more tax efficient to sell it and to take the capital than it is to take it as
very
income,
fortunate, right? For the last 15 years, I've lived in countries where tax is a 4-letter word, not a 3-letter word. So capital gains tax is not an issue in the countries that I've chosen to live in for the last 15 years. But yeah, you're right. Normally, capital gains are treated from a tax perspective differently in many jurisdictions.
When you were going through this journey of buying and selling companies, obviously you did 20 years in the UK, I believe, before you stepped out of it. Did you was there an epiphany moment there where you thought, you know what, even within the structures and even though I'm making more money, I'm getting absolutely caned here on tax. I need to get out of the country.
Do you know, tax wasn't a consideration. So when I was a lad, when this was all fields, when I was a kid, we had something called taper relief. It was a 10% capital gains basically on businesses that you sold. There's still a version of it today, but it's quite restrictive. I think it's the first $1 million that you sell, you only pay 10% on. But back then it was everything. As long as you'd held the shares for a period of time, you only paid 10% capital gains on them when you sold it. So so back in the day, tax wasn't particularly an issue. More of an issue for me actually was things like lifestyle, how you live. I mean, nowadays when I'm choosing somewhere to live, because I've got a young family, I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old child, and when we're choosing somewhere to live, safety is right up there. So what are the crime rates? How safe are you if you want to wear nice things or drive a nice car? Comes really, really high up. And then things like medical care, because again, if your kids get ill, you want to be able to make sure that the hospitals and everything are really good. Then education, have they got a good schooling system? Funnily enough, I quit school when I was 15 and didn't finish school at all. I'm completely uneducated. And I always thought school was a waste of time, and that, if I had kids, I wasn't going to put them through school. I was going to, homeschool them or whatever. When you have kids, you realise that school is childcare. It's not education. It's to get them out of the house. It's not what they learn. So you're going to teach them way more around the dinner table than they're ever going to learn at school. But you do need for the sake of your marriage, you need some spare time. So school is childcare, but having good schools, where again, they're going to be safe at school. They've got, good sporting facilities. They've got things that they can do where they're going to make good friends, where they're going to have, their peers are going to add value to them and not drag them down, dark and crazy paths. And so, there's a whole list of things around somewhere that I want to live before tax. Tax is much further down that list. And then, below that is where you do deals as well, because you don't need to be in the country you're doing deals in. So, most of my deals are in the English-speaking countries of the world, like Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, the UK, the US, Canada. I don't want to live in any of those places, but I'm happy to do deals there, and I don't need to live in any of those places in order to do deals there. So my list of things. What was interesting when you do actually take a pragmatic view, I mean, look, as adults, one decision we can all make is where we live, yeah? So yeah. I've always thought about this pragmatically, and it's the reason I moved to Singapore many years ago. I've lived in Mallorca, I've lived in Italy, I've lived in Bali. So, I've lived in lots of different places, some more like holiday destinations and some more, sort of grown-up places as well. And when you're making that list of places to live, I think what strikes me is that the countries that tend to be very safe and have, good education and good school systems also seem to have quite low taxes. So if you look at places like Switzerland, Singapore, Monaco, Dubai, all of these places have very low crime rates, very low tax rates, very good schools, very good hospitals. It almost seems like there's a positive correlation between high tax and high crime. The more money you steal from people, the more money people steal from you.
I think people are just walking around more angry, especially.
Possibly.
Especially, I think the biggest bracket that's squeezed the most is obviously the middle class.
Yeah.
The people that want the 3 or 4 bedroom house, there's the C class on the driveways, on finance.
Well, there's still the myth that's perpetuated that your tax somehow goes to improve public services. Yet all the countries with high taxes have abysmal public services, and if you look at where the money actually goes, it gets pissed up the wall on stupid vanity projects for the government that don't impact people's lives at all. So I think this whole at the moment, everyone's believing the con that higher taxes lead to better public services. But as soon as you travel the world and you start to see how other countries do things, that facade quickly falls away, and you realise actually, the best countries are the ones that are most efficiently run. It's the quality of government that has if you look at how Monaco is run, or how Dubai is run, or how Singapore is run, these are models of how to run a country efficiently. And as a result, they can all do it on a much lower tax take.
If you were going to give people a list of countries they should look at, move into in order to progress further forward in their business, their life and everything else, where would you suggest?
Yeah, look, I think it depends on your own individual circumstances and, your spouse, your better half. This is a discussion you need to have between you. But just take an open-minded view of the world. Don't consider anywhere as off limits until you've visited it, until you spend time there. Lots of people would say, oh, no, I couldn't live there because X, Y, Z. I lived in Singapore. Singapore's actually very hard to become a resident. It's I was what you would call an economic migrant. They like rich people. So it was fairly easy for me to become a permanent resident. But it's very difficult to normally become a permanent resident there unless you're going to bank tens of millions of dollars into an account there. So that that's not available to lots of people just to go live there. I would have a look at where suits your own individual circumstances. Like I say, don't predicate it on tax. Make your list. What's your own list of things that are important to you? What are high value things when it comes to where you live? It might be language, like it's got to be English speaking. It's got to be, it's got to have English schools, or it's got to have an American school or an Australian school or whatever it is. Make a list of those kind of things that are important to you, and then go see what ticks those boxes. You'll be quite surprised.
And I suppose a lot of the tax can be got around with the right structure anyway. So it's not really people make tax an issue, but tax comes from being a new starting entrepreneur. You're looking at tax, and like if you're a middle class person, you're looking at tax.
And also, funnily enough, you're always punished the most in the country where you come from. For example, I'm married to a non-British citizen. If I lived in the UK, I would be absolutely fucked for tax. But if she lived in the UK, she would pay a fraction of what I would pay. And that's just bizarre for me because it's almost like the government has incentivized you leaving when you're successful in favor of attracting foreigners who are successful. So it's a really perverse situation.
So it's like a role reversal within the countries, within the tax system, saying that they want to attract the most successful people from other places to spin the wheel.
Well, if you look at central London, hardly any British people own properties in Belgravia and Mayfair. And
Russian, Abu Dhabi,
Arabs and Chinese and things like this. And the reason is London's a tax haven if you're not British. It's literally on the OECD list of tax havens. The UK is number 11. And so, you've got places like the British Virgin Islands and the Cayman Islands and, the Seychelles, and the UK, all in the same list, but only if you're not British.
So what reason does an Arabic business owner who wants to invest his money, so he just parks it in a Kensington property just
also, I mean, look, everybody's tax situation is unique, but the UK, the UK is, like I say, a tax haven because there's a fixed rate of income tax you can pay no matter how much you bring into the country. You can also protect your worldwide income, which you can't do as a British citizen. You're taxed on everything you make throughout the world. So there's a whole bunch of benefits if you're foreign that you don't get if you're British. But the one good thing about being a UK citizen is you are taxed on your residency. So Americans are taxed on their citizenship. So if an American moves to a tax-free place, they still have to pay federal taxes back in America. Whereas, as a Brit, if you move, then you're taxed based on where you now live, not based on the UK tax system.
When I was doing some research about tax structures and how best to position yourself in the world, I actually realised, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but isn't America in some respects to a non-American a tax haven too?
Yeah, it can be. So you've got places like Wyoming and places like that where you can form a company with very favourable tax treatment. So yeah, and there's I always get Puerto Rico and the other one mixed up.
Dominican Republic?
No, it's anyway. There's an American protectorate that you can also use, which is a tax free. It's like their Jersey or Guernsey,
right?
That you can. Costa Rica. No, it's not Costa Rica is the one that's sovereign. Puerto Rico is the one that's part of the US. Yeah. So you can go there and benefit from like a tax free living scenario.
But would you say then, obviously, in your when you're doing mergers and acquisitions, you're not so much looking at this, but for most people, they're looking at reduce. Would you say that tax is their biggest bill that they have to reduce?
No. So it's funny, when I speak to entrepreneurs, I would say Americans are obsessed with tax. It's 50% of their conversation. You literally can't have a conversation with an American about M&A without a good dose of tax. Europeans, not so much. I think they just see it as being a part of, a nature of the beast. And to be honest, what you pay in tax on selling a business is similar to what you pay in tax on the earnings you're taking from the business. Obviously, you sell it for a much bigger amount than the earnings that you would take from it. But most of them are quite kind of, quite used to it or quite, obviously if they're faced with a big capital event, they're looking at how they can mitigate stuff. But as I say, most European countries, you're taxed on residency. So most people just leave and then sell it after they've left. So, a very common one for Brits is Gibraltar. So they become a Gibraltar resident before the end of the tax year, sell it in the following tax year, pay no tax. And as long as they don't come back to the UK for 5 years, they get to keep that tax-free status. So lots of people deal with it when the time comes, when it's time to exit. But I genuinely think it's a massive headwind to productivity if you have to constantly be thinking about tax. And so by basing yourself in a country that has a favourable tax regime, it does make life a lot simpler. It doesn't become a consideration, and therefore you can concentrate on the stuff that really adds value instead of the tax planning aspect of things.
Is Dubai, for British people especially, is Dubai kind of like one of the head ones for you?
Yeah, I think it's gaining a lot of popularity. Look, in the last 3 years, it's really shaken off a lot of the image that it had, previously, which is, I think people just felt it was, this really conservative kind of, place that's very hard to live in, that everything's illegal. And I think lots of people still hold that opinion, by the way. And I think when they set foot out of the airport, actually spend some time in Dubai, that's when they realize that actually it's a pretty cosmopolitan, forward-thinking, entrepreneurial kind of place, there's a really nice buzz to it. You can really get stuff done here.
It stimulates me coming here because it took me a couple of times initially to get used to how they move here, but I just find it very inspiring that I could be sat down with you this afternoon doing this podcast. I can go and I'll be sat down with Daniel Priestley maybe later on if he was here, and then I'll be sat down with someone else for the evening.
Everybody comes through here at some point, don't they? It's just this massive melting pot of everybody. What's funny is I had never been here. I'd never set foot in Dubai because I was convinced I wouldn't like it. And when I came here, I moved here. So, and it was quite, I'm quite impulsive anyway, but it was a decision that was made in the space of about 2 weeks. And we'd lived in Singapore for 12 years. So, we moved on a fairly, impulsive time frame.
Yeah, I think those lockdowns as well didn't help you. You know, it helped you speed up your decision.
We classify ourselves as COVID refugees, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a real good move for you. And obviously, when you've got and accumulated the assets and the wealth that you have over the time, you want to make sure that you can walk down the street, wear a nice watch, and not have to worry about someone A, resenting you, and B, trying to take it off you at knife point. You know, it's kind of the most important thing that you have when you've achieved the level of success that you have.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's why I said, you know, safety is right up there on that list of things that's important. And I think you're right. It is nice to have this kind of hub. Also, I mean, just the time zone is really good. I mean, it's so easy for doing deals in the US and in Asia, whereas when you're in Asia, it's really good for Europe and Asia. But if you want to do the US or Canada, it's horrible o'clock for someone. Yeah. So it depends whether you're the buyer or the seller as to who has to get up at 3 a.m. to do the Zoom call.
Yeah, and I suppose when you can do it from your boat as well and come and get away from the family, just sit here for a few hours, do a few deals.
So I've been traveling for the last 12 days. So I've done 5 countries in the last 12 days, and then so today's my first day back, and so I just said, all right, I'm going to have all my meetings today on the boat. And just camp out here for the day. So I've had lunch. I had a lunch meeting here for a couple of hours ago, and a couple of meetings this morning.
And why shouldn't you when you've worked hard to achieve it? Now, when I was doing the research for this podcast, obviously I was looking at the many different ways that you've structured of buying and acquiring businesses. I want to give people the real actionable stuff. Now, when I researched this and got on the boat to see you, there was 12 ways. You informed me when I got here there's actually 15 ways, but I wrote 12 ways down here. Yep. So I just want to kind of talk through these 12 ways that you've got of buying businesses and kind of get you to explain how you've used them and what you're kind of doing with them. So the first one there is obviously mergers.
Yeah. So mergers, look, a merger is an acquisition using your shares instead of cash. So the simplest way to look at it is you give somebody a bit of your company and they give you their company. So mergers are great because they create instant scale. And scale is really important in business because it drives up not only the value of the company, but also the ability for you to sell it. If you look at all of the companies in the world, it's like a pyramid with a small number of big ones and loads of little ones along the bottom. If you look at the universe of people that could buy a company, it's an upside down pyramid. So there's tons of people that can buy the big ones and almost nobody that can buy the little ones. So as you move up the scale, you widen the audience of potential buyers. When you have more buyers than sellers, you also increase the price. So it's supply and demand economics. So it's important to get scale. A merger can give you instant scale. If you want to be double the size you are, merge with a company the same size as you, and you'll double the size you were tomorrow. The other great thing with mergers is talent. So when you sell a business, you don't want to be running it. Well, where do you find someone to run the business? If you do headhunting or hiring, it's incredibly risky. But if you find a merger partner, the person running that business knows how to run a business like yours. So you've got somebody that's ready to go, and they'll relish the challenge of running something twice as big. So you can create your executive team you're then going to sell the business with, and you can move to a more strategic role. So I always say to people, look at your calendar on your computer. What were your meetings last week? What did you do? What kind of meetings were they? Categorize them into customer value, staff, like what was the purpose of these? Were they sales meetings, all of those kind of things? And if you want to be strategic in the business, your meetings should be all around mergers, joint ventures, acquisitions, or exits. And those are the only 4 things you should be having meetings about. All the rest of them are jobs. Finance meetings, employment meetings, product meetings. There should be somebody doing that job. And a merger is a great way to get the people to do those jobs.
So you don't go near anything regarding sales, marketing, or sitting on a board meeting for a company, nothing like that?
No.
That's all jobs to you?
Purely a shareholder, yeah.
Purely a shareholder. And how do
I focus on shareholder value? How do I make the value of my shares worth more?
And that is so critical that you've said that, because when you've only got one goal like that, and that is your only goal, you can just singly focus on that. Whereas if you start dipping into the business, start worrying about how it's running, you just put a C-suite team in place to make sure that runs the way that you want.
And look, I did it the other way first. So I spent years being involved in every business and taking on every problem. And I had 12 companies at one point, and I had 12 CEOs running those companies, and they would all deal with most of the shitty problems. But if they had a really, really, really shitty problem, it came to me. So my diet every day was the 12 shittiest problems from my companies that no one else could solve. So I had a diet of shit, basically. Yeah. And I looked like I had a diet of shit as well. I was getting fat. I had bad habits. I was like not sleeping properly. I really was in a bad state. And then basically I decided fuck this, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I literally took 4 days off and turned my phone off. Back then it was like, it wasn't WhatsApp or all of that kind of stuff. It was just turn my phone off. And what I found is when I came back, a lot of the problems that I would have got really obsessed with previously kind of solved themselves. So I would have a message that would say, hey, shit, if we don't pay the staff by 4 o'clock today, everyone's going to leave. Then we're going to lose this customer. Then everything's going to, turn to shit. Well, what I would have normally done is jumped up and tried to solve that problem. Right, we can take some money from this company. We can transfer this here. I can get Bob to pay us early. And, I would have jumped all over that. And that would have been my Friday afternoon. Would have been sorting that shit out for them. Well, basically, by Saturday, I had a message from them saying, don't worry, I've sorted it. So just by me not being there, they found a way to solve the problem. Yeah. And so I then realized, actually, I think I'm being really helpful to these businesses, but I'm probably not as good as I think I am. I'm probably not as helpful as I think I am. And if I just left them alone, if I wasn't there for them constantly, they'd probably manage. And so it's your ego that makes you think you're actually important to these businesses. And when you get out of the way, not a lot changes. Which is quite humbling.
So how important is it that most entrepreneurs overcome their own self?
Yeah, so it's tricky because when you start a business, everything that happens in that business you probably did yourself at some point, and then you've delegated it to somebody else. And so when you start a business, you're kind of ingrained in every single facet of it. When you buy a business, you can pick and choose what things you take on board. And this was a really valuable lesson. When I sold a company, I walked away from all of that shit that I had to deal with. And when I bought a new one, I could choose what I got involved in because I didn't know how anything worked. There was no expectation on me to jump in and do those things if somebody else wasn't doing them. And so when you can pick and choose what to do, you can choose to just focus on the strategic stuff and let everybody else carry on doing whatever it was they were doing.
Was it a merger? Was that how you and Daniel met, wasn't it? Was through a merger?
Actually, no. So what? He was in the events kind of training industry, and one of his competitors came up for sale. And they, at the time, I think he was doing 1.5 million of revenue. This is 15 years ago. It's a long time ago. He was doing about 1.5 million in revenue. This company was doing about 3.5 million in revenue. It was a little bit more in the kind of personal development space, and he was a little bit more in the kind of business to business space. But it was basically the same business model. And he decided not to buy them because they were looking for about 300 grand to buy the business. I bought it for £1. And he said, fuck, if I knew it was £1, I would have bought it, and I said, well, 300 is obviously what they wanted. It's not what they're going to get for the business. And so, as a result, we became great friends while he tried to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. And isn't that a great way though? Because rather than being too egotistical not to see the fact that you know something more than he knew that he needed to learn, he was humble enough to go, do you know what? Jeremy knows something I don't know here. I need to close that gap.
And Daniel is by far and away a much better operator than me. So I'm really good at working on businesses. He's really good at working in businesses. And I think, probably the magic is somewhere in between. But, he will never go full Jeremy and I'll never go full Dan. So it's going to be...
it was just an interesting way that you've obviously gone and met someone and then obviously formed a great working relationship over a period of time and do that. The next one was this one called Hospital Pass, which I really wanted to understand from you.
So Hospital Pass is an expression from rugby. Rugby is American football for men.
Yeah.
It's always upsets a few people. But basically, you're only allowed to tackle somebody if they're holding the ball. And so what people do is when they see somebody thundering towards them, they give the ball to the guy next to them, and then they get clattered. And it's called a hospital pass because the person ends up in hospital. And a hospital pass in business context is literally taking the ball off somebody at the moment of the crash. So when the business is about to close, they're about to close the doors and send everybody home, you give them £1 for 100% of the shares and you take the business that's about to fail. And then we have a bunch of strategies that you can use to basically stop it from failing or to extract the value from it and then close it down.
So you take the assets off the business and leave all the debts, all the bad credit and all that.
All the bad stuff dies with the company, yeah. And obviously it has to be done in the right way. So there's a lot of... You have to always make sure that the creditors are looked after in an insolvency. You need not many people realize this, but a director's first duty is to the creditors, not to the shareholders. So there's a very specific way that you would structure that transaction to make it fully legal so that nobody gets into trouble and that it works properly. But yeah, it's a very efficient way. If you want to get those customers and bring them into your business to grow your company, there's a smart way to do it without putting a rotten apple into a bucket of nice shiny apples.
Right. And we see a lot of that happening where people get the customer base all the time, couple of quids exchanged on the docket, and then all the debts and all the problems and all the crap disappear with the business.
Yeah.
How does that feel like on an ethical standpoint though? I mean, it's not your fault. It's not your fault.
We didn't get into trouble. Yeah. Actually, we're kind of the white knight that's coming in at the end to rescue.
But you save the jobs, I suppose.
Yeah, we save the jobs, we save the customers, and the business was going to fail anyway. So we made the best of a bad bunch, basically.
Yeah, and that's what.
And if the director has done something wrong, if there was misconduct, that's going to be investigated and they can be struck off as a director.
Yeah,
and that's nothing to do with us. That happens after the liquidation process. There's a disqualification process the directors will have to go through. That if they've done anything wrong, they will be held accountable.
I just want to go further in on that merger thing that we were speaking about in regards to Daniel. He was offered that business for 300. You bought it for £1. How did you structure that deal to buy it for £1 over 300 that they wanted in that?
Yeah, so basically it wasn't sellable at that point. They wouldn't pass a due diligence, which is the case with most small companies, by the way. Most small owner managed businesses are not in a position that they can be sold. So we actually agreed a deal to take a majority stake in the company for £1 and to buy the minority for 300 grand within the next 3 years. But we would use the company's own profits to buy that.
So it's essentially it's vendor finance.
So they still get the 300 grand, but only after we've made it sellable, and then we use the company's own cash flow to buy the other percentage of it.
Yeah. So is that similar to vendor finance, or?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, in a way. But I mean, it's actually more like an earn-out. So vendor finance is normally a fixed amount of money over a fixed period of time, but ours was conditional upon being able to make the business better.
Right. So you're in a no-lose situation, aren't you?
Exactly. It's an asymmetric bet. It's a bet you can win, but you can't lose. And so when there's a conditionality to it, it's normally called an earn-out.
Quick one for you guys. This podcast is sponsored by contentremoval.com. As many of you are probably aware, I set up contentremoval.com in 2017 to help people remove all forms of online content, and I've looked after some of the biggest names and brands in the world doing it, and I would love to help you if you're struggling. If you're struggling to remove images, videos, search results, fake accounts, or anything online, go to contentremoval.com and we'll help you today. Just on this, how are you managing risk? Because I know that one of the key elements of everything that you do is you want to take the biggest amount of upside possible, but you want to massively protect the downside risk. So there's little to none.
So we always look at asymmetric transactions. So there's no downside, only room for upside. Our downside is our time and energy. So it's an opportunity cost more than anything else. And and to be honest, if you're buying a small business, that's kind of the only way you can really do a deal, because small businesses are incredibly volatile assets. If they lose a couple of key staff members or a couple of key customers, they're worthless. They go bust. And so they can go to zero very, very quickly. So you shouldn't borrow money to buy small businesses. Leverage buyouts are not a great idea, because you shouldn't borrow money and invest it in volatile assets. You shouldn't mortgage your house and buy Bitcoin, for example. So you have to, in order for the business vendor to get what they want, they're going to have to work with you. It's going to have to be some sort of collaborative transaction if they want to get their headline. If they want to get their 300 grand, here's how we're going to get them to their 300 grand. This is the way that it will work. And there's not a cash buyer out there that's going to give them a check for this.
Right.
They say there's one born every day, but you can't always find them.
So essentially what you do is you go in, you see what the owner of this business wants out of it for themselves, and then you figure a way that this business can give them somewhere close to it over a period of time, which allows you to take the company that day for literally nothing, and then work with them to get them to the point. And when you take an acquisition like that, do they have to remain within the business to help you get to the point?
It really depends. So every deal is slightly different. Like with some deals, the guy literally doesn't want to stay there. They're sitting there with a fucking bottle of whiskey and a revolver. It would be irresponsible to make them stay there. And for others, you often find that they're very good at what the business does, but not very good at business. And so, the garage mechanic that's great at fixing cars, for example. So if you can take over running the business and they can focus on fixing the cars, that's often what they want. They want I think it was Michael Gerber, wasn't it, that said most entrepreneurs are technicians suffering an entrepreneurial seizure. So the entrepreneurial seizure is they decide they want a business that does what it is that they're good at. And so they start this business and then suddenly they fucking realize, I hate this. It's horrible. Helping people out of those situations and allowing them to focus on what they're good at can sometimes be a
I mean, how many hairdressers, plumbers, carpenters have we seen that are living this life?
Recruitment consultants. I mean, even in the kind of more white collar stuff, recruitment consultants, PR people, marketing people. You know, they go and work for a marketing company. They think this is easy. They start a marketing agency, and then they realize, you know, it's not just about coming up with a great campaign for a client. It's all the other shit, doing the VAT return, hiring people, you know, all of that stuff.
The HR stuff that you don't see when you grow in a business, when you get past 5-10 staff and you need the HR, then you have the HR problems. And it's just that takes all your...
AI is going to be a dream for that, isn't it?
Yeah. But, yeah, I think AI is going to incorporate into many of your businesses and probably increase your profit margins massively. Yeah, but then you've got Invoice Out.
Yeah. So Invoice Out is just a very simple way of transferring value from one entity to another. If you think about it, if you're a shoe manufacturer and you sell a bunch of shoes to a shoe shop, how do you make it so that those shoes that belong to you now belong to that shoe shop? You send them an invoice, and that invoice transfers the title of those shoes to that shoe shop. And so very simply, when you're doing very small transactions, if you're trying to buy, you know, perhaps the goodwill or the customers from a, you know, 300 grand a year turnover company, if you did a full sale and purchase agreement with a lawyer, you'd probably spend 30, 40 grand on the transaction to move those customers over, and it's just not worth it. But you can actually invoice that value from one company to another, and it takes you 2 minutes, and it provides a simple way of transferring the assets from one entity to another without all the legal fees. Again, tons of caveats. You know, this is normally shared with people with a lot more context around it.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to give people a broad stroke, a flavour from you. Because people's minds will be blown, because not many people really can conceptualize someone saying that companies can be bought for £1, bought for nothing, paid over time. They haven't seen it. And a lot of the people that are speaking this, in all fairness, Jeremy, on the internet, on Instagram, don't really know what they're talking about. They're just selling them a course and they haven't done what you've done. So
So I mean, most of that kind of industry, that course industry, is just digital marketers. They're very good at digital marketing. They can create a sales funnel that can take a couple of grand off you and then upsell you to a 12 grand mastermind product, and that's all they do. That's their, you know, and they were doing it in marketing services. They were doing it they'll do it in AI next. They'll be doing it in whatever's hot at a particular time. And acquisition entrepreneurship is one of those kind of hot topics because there's so many opportunities out there at the moment. There are so many businesses that need to transition. There's lots of opportunity.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to give people a real insight into what you do, because obviously I know that from my network that you actually do what you say you do, which is
eat my own dog food, isn't it?
Which in this industry is very important. It's important in every industry, but it's not. It's the
blind leading the blind.
It is, and there's obviously take a stake, which is like obviously that's where you buy 10% of a business, 20% of a business.
Yeah. Well, again, it's typically taking a stake, so getting a stake in a company in exchange for adding some value. So solve a problem, get some shares.
Right.
And then, you know, one of the most important things with take a stake and some of the other strategies that we have that use that stake is around the shareholders agreement that you have with them, because it's very easy to get shares in a company, but then you can become a passenger in that company where, you know, you have no control over what happens to the profits. You have no control in the event of a sale. So if you want to sell and they don't, there's nothing you can do about it. So having the shareholder agreement that allows you to get a share of the profits and allows you to sell the whole company, those things are very important.
So is that something to do with knowing what the A shares and the B shares in the company mean?
No, actually, it's just how the shareholders work with each other. So the framework of how they work together.
Is that set up within the memorandum of the limited company?
It can be. So there are certain rights that go into the. It's sometimes called a constitution or memorandum and articles of association. So you have things in there like preemption rights, which is where when you sell the shares, you have to offer them to the other shareholders first. You know, first right of first refusal, normally on the same commercial terms. But you can add things to that make it more powerful. So it's always important to have the agreement done in the right way so that you're not a passenger, basically.
Yeah, so that comes down to you being able to assess the agreement that's already in place, because you're going into this company and make sure.
But then you can just sign an amendment too.
Oh, you can sign an amendment. Oh, yeah,
as
beautiful.
You go in. Yeah.
And then there's buy-in, buy-out, and work-in, buy-out.
Okay, so a buy-in, buy-out is typically where we take a stake in a company, solve a problem, and then sell it back to them. And we have this clever vehicle where effectively. We take the stake, we solve the problem. Now, this can be, you know, improving their marketing, improving their sales. It can be what we call financial engineering, which is improving the profit and balance sheet and cash flow of the company. It can be, any number of services or products or whatever that you inject into the business in exchange for your stake. We then have a loan company that lends them the money to buy you out of your stake. So effectively, you take maybe a 20% stake in it. 6 months later, you sell it back to them for a couple of $100,000. And so that's the buy-in, buy-out.
Right. And then the
work-in, buy-out model is where you take the 20% stake, you solve a problem for them, and then you buy the other 80% from them. So effectively, it's the how do you eat an elephant one mouthful at a time type of idea. So, for example, if you approached a baby boomer who's run the business for 20 years and you say, I'm going to take the profits of this company and give them to you for the next 5 years, and then I'm going to own the company, which is a deferred payment plan, they'll most likely tell you to go fuck yourself. It's not a very exciting opportunity for them. They could do that with their cousin or their member of staff or whomever. If you take a 20% stake and you add value, you create some value for them. So you make the business more sellable. You create a data room so that they can help buyers. You improve the balance sheet and P&L, or you do a bunch of financial engineering stuff. That business, you've then done something in exchange for the 20% that's worth more than the 20%. Plus, you've done something you said you were going to do. And in this world, it's very rare to find people who do what they say they're going to do. So you're then in the top 1% of humanity at that point. So then when you go back and say, I'll buy the remaining 80%, but I'm going to pay you over 5 years, you're actually in pole position to get that deal done. Because you're an obvious safe pair of hands to go buy the rest of it. You can also use it for a leveraged buyout. We have another structure called deal pie, which I'm sure you'll get to, where you can then do a deal pie on the remaining 80%. So
break them down as you're going through them, because I'm going to touch on them anyway. But yeah, deal pie, leverage buyout. I mean, leverage buyout, you were saying.
Leverage buyout is like buying a house. You put down a deposit, you borrow the rest. Again, if you use the WIBO with a leverage buyout, you can get away without having to put your own capital in. So when you borrow money from a bank to buy a business, you typically have to have 20% cash down, and the bank will lend you the other 80. If you already own 20% and the bank is lending you the other 80, the bank classifies it as an MBO, or management buyout. And a management buyout, they're more willing to fund, and you don't have to put cash into it. So it's a way of doing a no money down leverage buyout.
And the reason they'll give you more money is because they know the people that were steering the company are there.
Yeah, well, you've done the due diligence. You're still involved in the business. Yeah, it's a safer bet for them.
Right. Did you mention the deal?
Yeah, the deal pie is basically just a structured acquisition where maybe you have some deferred, some earn out, some stuff. I think we have 8 different components in a deal pie that people can use to create a no money down.
I mean,
get people to their overall valuation. So we call it a pie because, let's say it's $1 million business. The pie is $1 million, and you're carving it up into slices. So we're going to give you $200,000 deferred. $200,000 is going to come from here. $400,000 comes from somewhere else, and so it's how do you do all of those things without actually putting the cash on the table?
Do you ever look at a business that you currently have in your portfolio and say that you see someone who is not a competitor but has a really good sales team within their business, but you don't want the rest of it, but you just want to buy the assets associated with the sales team? Is that kind of some deal you'd do?
I'd still buy the whole thing, and then you can always just get rid of the other bits or close them down or hive them off, whatever you wanted. Yeah, I would still probably look at an entire transaction. It's very hard to turn around to somebody and say, I just want to buy this bit of a business.
But what I mean is, do you ever look at businesses and just think, I really just want this part of this business?
Actually, I've probably done it the other way round, which is where I've bought a business and then realised there was one thing in it I really like. And the rest of it is not so valuable. I remember I bought a health club and spa, and the health club and spa business was terrible. But they owned a URL. It was in Watford in Hertfordshire, and they owned a URL which was watfordgym.com. And watfordgym.com was just a landing page where you got a free pass for 5 days at the gym. And 40% of those free passes turned into members. And we got 20 members a week coming through using that. And it was nearly all organic traffic because people would type Watford Gym into Google and find watfordgym.com. And so we registered like sloughgym.com, croydongym.com, like other... And it started to get the same organic traffic and then sell those leads to other gyms. Actually, that was worth more than the gym. It was worth more than the health club and spa.
I mean, this
little marketing method they used inside that company.
It's funny that you mentioned that because with contentremover.com, I know it's a very valuable domain name with great Google authority, and I've often thought about turning it either into a leads company rather than as a company that removes content and selling them to the other agencies that can't rank as highly as me, or doing selling it to someone like a Google or a Facebook, because as content removal becomes more and more prevalent and it's needed by the market, these companies need a URL that does what people want to do, right?
Yeah.
Are they kind of things that I should be looking at ways I should be looking at doing it, or?
I don't know. I mean, some of these URLs sell for huge amounts. I was chatting to somebody today that has a single word domain.
Yeah.
And they're looking for $30 million for it. So, some of these, and it's a .com. So, some of these domains can be worth huge amounts. So you might find that the domain is worth more than the business at some point. Yeah.
I think on assessment from my point of view, I think the domain is worth more than the business. Like in terms of what it cash flows compared to what the domain's worth.
Yeah.
is mental. But it just goes to show you that if you know these things ahead of time, you can see there's assets within a business, aka the domain name.
Yeah.
You could just look to sell that rather than even trying to sell the business and making your life hard.
Absolutely. So you buy everything, warts and all, and then maybe there's this bit of gold sitting in the business that's worth more than the business.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And then you've got like the corporate carve out, the property split, the minority roll up, and the agglomeration.
Yeah. So most of those last ones are roll up strategies. So as I pointed out before, as you get bigger, the universe of buyers also gets bigger. And when the universe of buyers gets bigger, there's an exponential value increase. So when you double in size, you don't just double in value, you exponentially grow in value because of the wider audience of potential buyers for you. So big really is beautiful. And one relatively straightforward way of creating a big company is to buy lots of small ones. So a lot of those last strategies, agglomeration, minority roll-up, etc., are roll-up strategies, putting many companies together, basically.
So this is where people are going out into the marketplace, they're buying lots of separate, like chiropractors, putting them into a group, and then taking the chiropractic group onto the stock exchange.
Going public is one route, so that's one of the things I do, but also just selling to private equity or selling to a competitor. A trade buyer is going to be much more interested in a 20 million revenue company than they are in a 2 million revenue company. So if you can acquire a bunch of companies to get to 20 million, it's worth then, you'll open the doors to a whole bunch of trade buyers. Private equity is only really interested if it's 100 million of enterprise value or more. So to get to that 100 million valuation, you need to, put a bunch of companies together to get to that sort of scale.
I was watching one of your videos and you were talking about how there's a lot of fake venture capital firms out there that aren't venture capital firms but look like on the surface that they are. How do I know, or how can people identify what is a true venture capital firm and what's not?
Yeah, so just a little bit of research. One of the first ones is, if it's a UK company, check out Companies House. Have they got any paid up capital? Have they got, what's the balance sheet look like? A lot of the fake ones are just front companies. They've registered a company for 100 quid and it doesn't actually have any assets. And then the other thing would just be to have a little mooch around online to look at deals that they've closed. A real private equity or real venture capital company would announce deals where they've been involved, and so you'll be able to find some trace of them online.
Would companies like that, though, in litigious places like the US, the UK, Australia, would they necessarily hold those assets on their own balance sheet, though? Or would they hold them in shell companies and other vehicles?
Yeah, but then they should still have some substance in the main company. The main company should be, if it's a proper fund, they will be charging fund administration fees. They will have employees. So that would lead to a balance sheet. A lot of these companies are literally like, $1,000 a year of revenue. So it's not what they're saying they're doing.
I suppose for someone like you, it's easy to see it from the outside, but I bet people get conned by this all the time.
Yeah. And look, there are so many scammers out there. It's untrue. It's almost like there's more of them than there are legitimate ones when it comes to particularly when you're doing things like capital raising. When you do capital, if you look at people who claim to be investing capital online, the amount of them that are actually advanced fee fraud, which is, yes, you've been approved for 50 million, just send us 100 grand. Like
the Nigerian type scam
everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, well, so obviously you see a lot of these people online that say they're teaching people to buy and sell businesses for £1. You see all these people. Yeah. We're not mentioning nobody's name, so we're not going to get done for anything like that. But how percentage-wise, from your point of view, how many of these people can actually walk the walk, and how many people that you see on Instagram these days talking about these strategies, talking absolute crap?
Yeah, they're all talking absolute crap. Nearly all of them. It's very, very... most deal makers don't share their inside knowledge of what they're doing. What I've done is I've been doing this for like 30 years. And so, if you look at that list of strategies you've got in front of you, when I recorded that video that you watched, there was 12. There's now 15 strategies. And I pretty much only do number 14 and number 15. And all the rest are deals that I've used in the past and then evolved to something else and then evolved to something else. And so a lot of the people that learn from me are doing, numbers 1 to 13, and I'm doing numbers 14 and 15. And so I'm happy to share that information with people because it's not something I'm using anymore, but it's hugely valuable to people to go out and use. The people that are selling the courses, they tend to stick to the safe stuff. So the stuff you can learn from books that you can learn on an MBA course. So it's not kind of the street fighter in the weeds kind of tactics that I talk about. But it's the kind of stuff that you could get from 20 minutes on Google without paying somebody a couple of grand to learn about it. And like I say, their masterminding and the kind of coaching and stuff that they do really is the blind leading the blind. They haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing. And they're charging people quite a lot of money. I mean, we have lots of people who join our Harbour Club community who've done other courses before, and they find it like a breath of fresh air to find like the source, if you like, the kind of where this has all kind of come from. Because
your main money making activity is mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah, I eat, sleep, breathe, shit, and fuck this on a daily basis. There's nothing else. And it's interesting, that I actually do not that many courses because I'm busy actually doing deals, and so I have a team that runs the Harbour Club. I have almost no involvement in the marketing or sales or anything to do with the Harbour Club. I just turn up and speak when I'm told to. And they're always pushing me for like, can we do a live event? Can we do a live event? Can we do a live, because we'd sell loads of tickets. And actually I haven't done a live event since January 2020. And we're doing one in April this year. And it's obviously getting quite popular. Lots of people it's 2024, by the way, depending on when you're watching this.
Yeah.
So we're doing one in April this year. And lots of people are booking onto it. It's going to be really unusual to stand on stage for 3 days and talk about this stuff, whereas normally I've been doing it kind of virtually. Or
how fulfilling is it for you though to see people acquiring big companies using your strategy?
Yeah, I love it. I feel like a proud father. When you teach people, they go and do it, and then we have these events called Deal Fest. Now, Deal Fest is just a 3-day event where people do case studies. In fact, we've got some 1-day events we're trialing as well, but it's just case studies. It's just Harbour Club members standing on stage running through a deal. And it's warts and all. It's how they found it, what the deal structure was, what's happened to it now, what lessons they've learned from it. And we typically cram like 5-6 speakers back to back. They explain their deal. We do some Q&A. There's no upselling because we're not one of these cheesy seminar companies that has to sell you more stuff all the time. So it's just content all day. And people really love it. And what's really humbling from my perspective is I hear all these success stories. Like one guy bought a farm and he's always dreamt of owning his own farm. Another guy bought a ski lodge and he's always dreamt of having his own ski lodge. And all these kind of things are just really heartwarming to hear people talking about, and how it's completely changed their life, and they're doing stuff that they really love on a sort of day-to-day basis. So yeah, and I learned so much from it. There's so many when I come away from those deal fests, I have pages of notes, as well as the delegates in the room have pages of notes. There's it's really funny when you're just immersed in something and doing it every day, you sometimes don't look up and take an objective view of what it is that you're doing. When you have to explain it to somebody else, the penny kind of drops and goes, fuck yeah, that actually worked and I never did it again. I should do that again. When you have to explain it to someone, it has a really powerful way of kind of triggering other thoughts and memories and things like that. And listening to other people explain their stories as well, you get other lessons that, perhaps you don't need to bump your head in the same place they bump their head. So, it's been very valuable for me.
Do you have mentors as well that are ahead of you that are doing bigger mergers and bigger acquisitions that you kind of lean on that give you insight as well?
No one kind of official. So no one that I would say, I pick up the phone, but I'm always kind of bustling around people that are playing a game at a bigger level. On the boat here 2 weeks ago, I had a US billionaire sold his first company for $500 million, second company for $3.3 billion. His third company has just been valued at $5 billion. Owns a famous sports team there, and so we were hanging out for a few hours talking mostly about the points system between the NBA and Formula One, because he couldn't understand the Formula One point system and I couldn't understand the NBA point system. So I probably should have had a more valuable conversation with him when I had him. But anyway, we both got something out of it. And then I had a group of family offices on here. So we had the Oman, the guy who runs the Oman Sovereign Wealth Fund. We had the richest person in Bahrain, it's not a sovereign wealth fund, but the richest family in Bahrain's CIO. We had the CIO for the richest man in Slovakia, chief investment officer, that is, for the richest man in Slovakia, who's worth about 3.8 billion. Just a load of them. That's why there's no single malt whiskies left in the bar from that evening. I try and hang out with those kind of people because it really does help just push the thinking a little bit further, you know. So when we launched a fund, so one of my big passions is about getting more money into small to medium-sized businesses, because I think, we have an economy where everybody lives and works, and there's another economy where all the money is. And I've always tried to, reconnect them to each other and try and make, small business an investable asset class. And it's those conversations that challenge my ideas of scale. Because I'm there thinking, maybe we should do like a fund, raise 10 million into a fund, and they go, we can't do anything less than 300 million. So you go,
so you realise you're thinking too small.
I've now got to think of a 300 million problem to solve, not a 10 million problem to solve, and so it helps you recalibrate and think in a way that actually makes sense to that kind of institutional capital.
How have you got such an abundant mindset though? Because when you mentioned earlier on the podcast this rich mentality that you kind of had. You mentioned it in a sentence. You put it in a better way than I've just put it, but you mentioned it. And I thought that's fascinating to me how you embody wealth, you embody the richness. So you attract more of it essentially because you embody it. How can people embody it so that they can trap more into their life?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, when I was younger, obviously I was living on packet noodles, but still talking the talk and wearing sharp suits and going out to meetings, even though I was raiding the penny jar to put gas in the car, kind of thing. And now obviously things have changed quite dramatically, and it wasn't overnight. I'm a 30-year overnight success, I guess. It's it's taken its time, and it's been a slog to go through all of that process. But I think I've always felt that abundance. And I remember there's one memory I have that was really, really specific. And I was sitting in Monaco, at the Monaco Formula One, and I was about 18 years old, and I was sitting in the cheap seats in the stands watching the Formula One. And so you're in these seats here with everybody. You've then got the track in front of you, and you've got all the yachts on the other side there. And I was literally sitting there contemplating, because there's quite a long time before the race starts. And I was sitting there contemplating, like, what is the difference between me sitting here and then sitting there? We've got the same 24 hours in the day. We've got the same, most wealth nowadays isn't inherited. When I was a kid, actually, the Sunday Times rich list was probably 30% inherited. It's now 1%. I think the only person in the top 10 now, is inherited. And all the rest of it is first generation wealth. If you look at all the wealthiest people on the planet right now, it's first generation wealth, from Bernard Arnault, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, all first-generation wealth. None of them are in real estate. All of them have taken companies public, which is an
none of them are in real estate.
None of them are in real estate. They've all done M&A. They've all done mergers and acquisitions. They've all done, all taken companies public. So there's some commonalities there around deal making.
It's interesting that none of them are in real estate. I wouldn't have thought that.
Think about it. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, Bill Gates, Microsoft, and so on. Yeah.
So real estate is sold as this golden egg that everyone should follow.
So I think real estate has been a good asset class, and continues to be a good asset class. And of course, all of those people, I'm sure, have significant exposure to that asset class, but it's not their source of wealth. It's an investment, and I think as an asset class, it's one you should be in, but it's not one you should be in exclusively. So if you're a real estate expert, if you live, breathe, eat shit, and fuck real estate, then maybe it can be 60 to 70% of your wealth. But if you do something else, then it shouldn't be more than 20% of your wealth. You should still be diversified and in other asset classes. And this is one of the things I see in wealth all the time: is people have a favorite asset class and they over allocate to it. So they're either all Bitcoin, all property, all Tesla, and then they don't weather the economic storms so well when things go wrong. The other thing is, I think people often mistake real estate as an investment when actually it's a business. It has customers, it has, boilers you have to fix, stuff you have to do. I've got rid of most of my direct property investment, apart from homes I live in around the world. And I've got some land and I've got some other real estate investments. But basically, I've got rid of all the buy-to-lets and all of that kind of stuff. And if I want exposure to rental income from real estate, I do it through real estate investment trusts.
REITs, yeah. And you find that a better vehicle for most people to be exposed, to have exposure?
Yeah, because it's passive. So you go to bed, you wake up the next day, and you know the money's been paid, and you haven't had to fix a boiler, chase a tenant, do a credit check.
Are you just going for the typical Vanguard stuff, or are you going for higher level of access stuff?
I'm a Singapore permanent resident, and so Singapore have a whole portfolio of their own REITs, which are tax free as well. So
yeah, beautiful.
I have a weighting towards Singapore REIT. They're called S REITs.
So when you if you broke down your allocation, would you say like 60-70% of your money's allocated to acquisitions and mergers and all that kind of stuff? Or?
So I keep that separate. So I look at my kind of core portfolio separate to my business.
Right.
So my business is buying and selling companies, and obviously that a lot of capital stays inside that business and rolls around. And then the invested capital, actually my investment strategy looks like an 80-year-old man's investment strategy. Is very income focused. So I buy a lot of income products. Option strategies that generate income. So when you get into rich people banking, you have all these structured notes that you're not allowed to buy as a retail client. And I don't know why, because they're much safer than the things that retail clients are allowed to buy. But I guess that's how they keep the rich and the poor.
Yeah.
So there's kind of two sides. I could go on for hours about this. Two sides.
I'm interested.
There's two sides of volatility. There's an index called the VIX, which you've probably heard of. So the VIX is the volatility index. When it's low, right now while we're talking, it's low. It's at historical lows. So you should have exposure to VIX while volatility is low. And then when volatility spikes, VIX spikes. So the capital that you have in there will double or triple as the VIX spikes. And you then move it into volatility option strategies like fixed coupon notes, which pay you a really high income. So when volatility is high, you can make 30% a year from a fixed coupon note, and it's capital. You can have it capital protected, or you can have it so that if it goes wrong, you end up owning Amazon or Apple or some stock that you would quite like to own. And so there's two sides of that volatility coin that you play as part of your equity portfolio. So my equity stuff tends to be in that volatility based strategy. And because it generates lots of income. And then fixed income is obviously things like bonds and bond-like stocks like REITs and master MLPs and things.
Do you buy and store like physical metals as well?
No, I used to, and I found it really boring. So I had no, I didn't find it interesting.
Right.
I like liquidity, and although there's liquidity in metals, you pay on the way in and you pay on the way out, and that often wipes out the profits from it.
Right. And that's on the spread you're on about to get rid of it, yeah.
So I have exposure to miners as a way of getting out, to play the commodity super cycle, if you like, have exposure to the commodity producers, is the way I play that.
What are the generational wealth families' appetite to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies now from your point of view? Are they allocating 3-5%, or are they not allocated at all in your experience?
It's polarizing. So I had 22 family offices on this boat about 2 weeks ago, and I would say 50% of them said that it's only for money laundering and selling drugs, and the other 50% had an allocation.
Right. And when you say they've had an allocation, what kind of percentage?
It's less than 1%.
Right.
It's tiny. But what's interesting is the BlackRock ETF. The BlackRock ETF is now on the list of products that goes into people's pension funds. So when you have a pension that's run by BlackRock, it allocates to all of their biggest ETFs, and it's now one of their biggest ETFs, so it gets an automatic allocation. So there can be pensioners that can hate Bitcoin, think it's the worst thing that's ever been thought of, but have it in their pension and don't even fucking know.
Right. And they're rolling the same out for Ethereum as well, aren't they?
Well, so that's just been declined by the SEC at the time of recording, but then they declined the Bitcoin one before, and they were taken to court, and they basically had to create it because they had no argument as to why they allow people to have leverage futures ETFs but not have a Bitcoin ETF. I mean, it was a bit perverse. But that Gary Gensler at the SEC, I mean, he's just so anti-crypto.
Yeah.
That he vetoes anything that comes through that looks even vaguely crypto-like.
But when you come to allocating against crypto, you'd take a fund, you wouldn't take the physical asset.
So I personally have physical asset. I have a Trezor, have physical asset, and I would, but I think for simplicity for most people, buying the ETF is the simplest way to go. I mean, what's funny is, I have, lots of different bank accounts, and some banks still won't let you buy the ETF. So even though it's listed on the New York Stock Exchange, it's listed by BlackRock, who have 10 trillion under management. It's the largest, capital fund in the world, and they won't let you buy their ETF because they don't like the underlying asset. So there's still a little way to go before it becomes easy for everybody.
Do you have goals that you want to achieve in terms of like monetary wealth and everything like that?
Not really anymore, no. So I used to base it on the income that was generated passively from my portfolio, but yeah, not so much anymore. I tend to focus on so I'm a deal junkie. So when people ask me what my favorite deal is, it's always the next one, which is spoken like a true degenerate. I just get really excited about the next thing that I'm working on, basically.
One of your last deals, correct me if I'm wrong, was a 210 million roll up of a company onto the stock exchange.
Harbour stock exchange, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
the deals are getting bigger.
And so what's the next one going to be, like 500 million or?
Yeah, I don't necessarily predicate it on the value. Actually, the next one is about 260 million. That's a live streaming business that we're looking to take public, and then we have a roll up in the sports media space that could be about the same sort of size, and that's a really exciting project. And sports media is super hot at the moment with Liberty buying Formula One and lots of stuff happening in that space. And Saudi really getting involved. They've created a $57 billion fund specifically for sports media. And sports in general. So there's a lot of excitement around that space. And so, yeah, that's quite a fun project that we're working on at the moment. There's a number of really cool assets that we're rolling into that. So, yeah, I just like the stuff that's exciting, really.
When I study people like you and kind of look at your exterior success, I kind of try and go inward and think, okay, what is the commonalities between the people that I'm speaking to? And one of the commonalities that I find is solid relationship, solid partner, children, that kind of stuff, and having it locked down in that way. Yeah. How much has having it locked down in terms of like your relationship and what's going on there helped you as a man go and just crack on with business and go and do what you do?
Enormously. And I think it was something that was missing for many, many years. I was a late starter. I got married and had kids when I was 40. And before that, I indulged in,
all the debauchery,
a crazy lifestyle, and which was great fun. And I'm glad I got it out of my system. And also, men are kids till a much older age than women are, and so I think genuinely we're just better husbands when we're a bit older.
Yeah,
because all the things that we enjoy doing when we're younger are the kind of things that get you divorced. So, when you're older, so I think waiting until I did was the best thing I could have possibly done. And then when it happens, you realize how much fucking time you invest in chasing the opposite sex and dating and that whole, it's incredibly thought consuming and time consuming. And when you take that out of the equation, it's kind of like selling the business where I got all my time back, It was kind of when I got married, I got all my time back. And plus you have that supportive partner, you have, kids now, which completely changes your complexion on everything. You then tend to hang out with more people who are families as well. So you hang out with more people that are like you, so have kids and that sort of stuff. That creates much more stable relationships and things like that. So it's a hugely beneficial thing to have that strong domestic life and to not fuck that up as well. Remember, I'm in the business of contracts, and the biggest contract you'll ever enter into is the marriage contract. So I take contracts pretty seriously, and my parents have been married for 55 years, and that's a huge inspiration to me. And so, yeah, hopefully I can bring that kind of longevity into my own life.
Mine have been married for 44 themselves, and when you see like longevity of marriages like me and you've seen in our parents, you kind of can only want that for yourself.
It's a stability, it's an anchor.
Yeah, 100%. And I can see from you and how locked in you are in your deal flow and everything like that. The family thing and having that stuff sorted has probably really helped you.
Yeah, it's the foundations. You can't do anything in life without strong foundations.
But it'd be interesting. What's it done monetarily to you? Have you done bigger and better deals since you've noticed that drive of having children?
So we live quite a lavish lifestyle, and I don't think I would do that if I didn't have the wife that I have. In fact, if you want business stuff, you follow me on Instagram. If you want lifestyle stuff, you follow my wife on Instagram. My wife has 20 times more followers than I have, showing people how to spend it versus how to make it.
I love that.
It's quite an interesting, it explains the human condition a lot, yeah? People want the upside without the work bit that goes into it. But yeah, I mean, it frightens me. I mean, because I come from very humble beginnings and, making £1 an hour on a farm, when you realise how much you spend. I mean, I get 3 million points a year from Amex, and you get a point for every dollar you spend.
Yeah.
And,
that's personal spending, isn't it?
Personal. That's kind of look at that and go, fuck, that's a lot, and think all the other things that you could do with it, or all the other. But of course, it just becomes normal, and it becomes what you do, and I think also wealthy people create an economic wake around them, and that supports so many other people. You have you have employees, you have people that are working for you, you have businesses that benefit from where you are, and that economic wake is good for society.
Is there a number that you got to though, Jeremy, and you thought, you know what, beyond this, the gains are not as incremental as this?
So look, I mean, lots of people you meet are asset rich and cash poor, and so liquidity is really key. Actually, some of the times I've had the biggest number on my bank balance have been some of the times where I've been the least liquid. And so actually the numbers don't matter as much as for me, like the sustainability of what we're doing and the comfort that the lack of stress, I guess, around what I'm doing. So there are times when you feel a lot more comfortable with that stuff, and times where you feel you've just got to push it a bit more and make it better.
I love it, and I really appreciate you dropping all this knowledge for these people today. But I like to ask this question at the end of every podcast, because I think it summarises where you're at in life and kind of really conceptualises your thoughts. But if there's like one piece of advice, one pearl of wisdom that you could just leave and impart on this audience today, and you can't leave anything else, but you could just leave that, what would that be for you?
I think, look, acquisition entrepreneurship, the juice is worth the squeeze. It can have an order of magnitude impact on your wealth and your time. And as I said, most people start a business because they want more time and they want more money. And startup is not the way to achieve that, in my opinion. It's worked for a few people, but I think that's the lottery winners rather than the everyday person. Acquisition entrepreneurship, it's worth taking a peek behind that curtain. If you've never thought about it before, dive down that rabbit hole and see if it's for you or not.
Yeah,
I'll see if it is.
I love that. And where can people find you online and get in contact with you?
Like I say, Jeremy Harbour on Instagram is the one with the blue tick. It's not the one trying to sell you crypto. It's the one with, because people copy.
I'll link that under the podcast.
Yeah. Or my wife, if you want to see her.
if you want to see the benefit of Jeremy working, you can look at his wife's Instagram. But I really appreciate you dropping this source today, and obviously there's a lot of practical knowledge in there too, and giving the guys a bit of an insight into like what it's like to be the traditional man that actually goes and provides for his family too. I thought that was a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Cheers.
Guys, do me a solid favour. Drop a comment below this video and let us know who you want on the podcast next.